The child, right after his or her birth, starts learning a language, right? But this language learning becomes distinct with the passage of time. So, first of all, the child has this babbling stage, then babbling and going stage. Then, at the age of 1 year, he starts producing one word. Almost around 2 years, the child is now moved on to to two-word stage, and almost around 3 years, the child moves on to telegraphic stage, right? So after the 3 years, the child is learning the language very rapidly. This is generally believed that children in different part of the world learn language almost at the same time. But however, presently few studies are being made which say that the quality of language learning or the number of words learned may be different in different places or in different social tiers, right? So some well-known studies about social class differences in language acquisition have been made in the past and recently, right? For example, like Betty Hart and Todd Risley, meaningful differences in the everyday experience of young American children, and they have made experiment that does this social difference is also responsible for language learning in a better way or not. So by age 3, children from privileged families have heard 30 million more words than children from unprivileged families. So they made experiment that the children between privileged and unprivileged families have a difference of words which they listen to or have during their early lives. So longitudinal data on 42 families examined in this study what accounted for enormous differences in rates of vocabulary growth. So in this study, they made a research over 42 families and tried to know the enormous difference in the rate of vocabulary growth that children of privileged classes have learned in their early years by the age of 3, and people who lack these words and who belong to unprivileged families. So children turned out to be like their parents in stature, activity level, vocabulary resource, and language and interaction styles. So what they found is that the reason for having more words or exposure to more words is because of their parents' stature, the activities they have because of their being in privileged class, and they have more vocabulary resources. They may be having more books or such setups in which they can interact with more things, and they have more experience to the language listening opportunities, and obviously interaction styles. The way they meet with their parents and with other people, and the way they interact with them. So though 42 is not a very large number of sample, and there are many other questions to be asked, but this work suggests that we should be concerned about possible lasting effects of cultural differences in children's linguistic environment. So possible lasting effect of cultural differences. So they have suggested that this can be very important, that just because of the cultural differences, the learning of the children can vary from one class to another class. So we can see that socio-economic status differences language learning are to some extent important. However, more research needs to be done with these differences. The linguists need to have more research on these issues, that whether it's an actual variable in language learning, that social differences do give the opportunity to children to have more exposure to the language and more learning opportunities, and have better language learning than the children of the unprivileged class.